everybody had the food here? Can we just take a minute and thank Alberta Street Pub, Love Train? The food is fantastic. Make sure that you eat lots, drink lots. Okay, Achilles has cleaned his plate. That's good. Good job, man. All right, welcome, y'all. We walked into the inside and said, oh, it's First Monday. And then we looked out here and went, let's do this. How great is this, huh? Now, it's fantastic. I'm going to say a few quick words, as I want to do, before our amazing music policy team gets up and listens to you, because that's a lot of what we're hoping to do tonight. So, it is April Fool's Day, and I tried to come up with something funny. The joke is that I didn't talk for a minute. Hey, that's a personal best. Come on. All right, I'm going to talk about a couple of programs that have been happening. We are very excited. Our street music program is coming together. Naleen Silva is running that program. We are working in 12 different locations around the city, with half of them in downtown Portland, engaging the corporate community and public stakeholders in revitalizing our city through music, because we were the ones, Jamie tried repeatedly to participate in the governor's revitalization task force, and they just kept on doing this. We need to show them, we need to demonstrate to them that they are not going to revive an empty downtown that they've cleared of problems without bringing our joy into it. So we're really excited for that program. It's going to be between 5 and 20 events per space. So that's 12 spaces, 5 to 20 events per space between June and October. These are paid opportunities. Obviously, Music Portland is committed to making sure that musicians and techs are honored for their work and paid as professionals. And the only way to be eligible for those performances is to be in our performer directory. So everybody's wondered how you hear about some musician that gets some ridiculously great gig with somebody who's not a venue, they're not, maybe it's a corporation or it's a community organizer and they've got good money and you don't know how they got it. And the problem is we as a community have not come together to say, this is us, and make it available and accessible and intuitive to people that are outside of the music community. If you write a bio about your music that says you were inspired by a butterfly, it may be true to your art, but it doesn't help somebody hire you. So our thing that Renee, where are you? There she is. What a rock star this woman is. She has been working and building out this incredible directory. On Wednesday, if you are a paid member of Music Portland, which means the cost of a PBR per month, $25 a year, you will get a notice to make your performer directory listing. It's got all the stuff in it. It's designed to be easy for people. And the goal of it is to feed outside buyers that have no other way to find you. So this is not another way for bookers at venues to find you. They can use it, certainly. But some of the people that I'm talking to about embedding this directory, one entry, multiple places, is the PDX Office of Events, Venture Portland, Travel Portland, Civic Community and Civic Life in the City of Portland, Portland Parks. I talked with the state library office. They're going to put it out so every library in the state has it. State Museum Organization, Pioneer Courthouse Square, and I'm working with corporations to see if they want to put it on their intranets, both for their own internal event booking, but also all of their employees that have their own events and parties and need to get stuff. So the goal for us is to expand the universe of paid opportunities, not only for performers, but also for techs. And there we go. And so how many people here, I know most of the people that come to this on the regular are already members. How many people are at least working musician, $25 a year members? Okay, if you're not, make sure that you do it. And Renee has set up You wanna say where you've got it?
Okay, so the performer directory QR codes are right there. So I'm gonna do you one better with this performer directory. Yes, it's launching Wednesday, but the secret is if you're here tonight, it's launched for you tonight. So, but you have to be a member to be a part of it. We are showing it to people on Wednesday, and we need some people to be in there to show it to people. So it shows like, hey, you can sort, you can filter, you can, search for people. So if you are here tonight and you sign up as a member, you can, by Tuesday night, be shown to people by Wednesday. So good idea to get signed up. If you have checked your membership, if you can't log in, that means you either are not a paying member or you need to upgrade or update your membership. So talk to me if you're confused about that and stuff like that. So what else am I missing? Oh, it just says musicportland.org/join on the bottom there of the QR code page. That is where you would sign up to be a member. So do
awesome. Yeah, and the great thing is that the earlier you get in this listing, the more you're going to catch people that are planning their events for the summer season right now. If you're like, yeah, I'll get to it, and you sign up in July, everything's booked. So make it a priority. And I'm going to ask definitely everybody, tell your friends, okay? Let's get everybody in there. Let's really show this city what the musical abundance looks like in Portland. Next up, I'm going to, without benefit of notes, introduce the amazing Music Policy Council that has done just phenomenal work. I will say that Jamie and I were at an arts and culture meeting at PSU that was packed to the gills with arts and culture people. And without warning, Music Oregon and Music Portland were called out as two of the most effective cultural advocacy organizations in the state. So Jamie and I went, us? And also, I was just down in Eugene last week and met with a bunch of funders, and the thing is tipping. For 6 years, I've been talking about how our music culture is culture, and it needs to be acknowledged as culture, maybe treated a little bit differently than other arts and culture, but it shouldn't be held aside. And it's exciting to see minds starting to shift and some more creative energy being brought to that. Jamie and I were also the other night at the Rob Noce event, talking with him, talking with Lou Fredericks, talking with state legislators. This is hard work. And so this is the event where Jamie is going to bring forward, and we want you guys all to be talking and engaging in this process. I give up the mic.
Come on up, friends. Hi. Well, welcome, friends, and thank you guys all so much for spending your Monday night with us. As Mara mentioned, my name is Jamie Dunphy. I am a board member with Music Portland, and I am the chair of the Music Policy Council. This is our town hall event for you. We are all volunteers. We are a volunteer body of about, I think, less than 15 of us, who are focused on turning the energy and the experience of the music community into advocacy and into action. It's an odd role that has not been historically done very well by anybody in the arts community. And we've learned for a long time that you can't really teach elected officials to speak artist, so we have to teach artists how to speak politician. We have had some amazing successes, and we've had some I'll say failures, not spectacular failures, but we've had some letdowns and some changes of direction. And so the purpose of tonight, we have been organizing through COVID. We have been organizing, trying to make sure that the music community has a voice at the table. And we have had some successes, and we've had some failures, and we've had some things that have changed. And we need to prioritize our time for the coming years. There's about to be an enormous election that happens in November. There is going to be an enormous amount of opportunity and energy in the city in the coming years about that we can try and build back better. That's not the right way of saying it, but we can build this city on the back using music as the backbone by which we are doing better. So the purpose of tonight is to figure out how are we going to prioritize our time. we also want to know, I'm not a performing musician anymore. I'm not professionally involved in the music industry anymore. And so my experience is often academic at this point. I don't know what's going on. We don't necessarily know what's going on in the broader community. And I want to hear from everybody in this room tonight. If you have specific policy suggestions, great. If you don't, that's also great. I don't expect folks to necessarily know how to translate your lived experience into policy. That's our job. We want to know, are there weird things that are happening? Are the cops showing up to your music venue and shutting you down when you're actually in compliance with your noise permit? Is an OLCC inspector coming and pounding on your door after hours and demanding to be let in? We need to know about these things. Is there a building that's being built right behind your recording studio that threatens to get you shut down arbitrarily? So before we dive in, I'd like to very quickly let our friend from Healthcare for All Oregon just very quickly do a shout out about his volunteer work and the work that's going on with Healthcare for All Oregon. Quick pleasure.
Hi, thank you. My name is Colin Stackhouse. I play fiddle and banjo. So I play music. Yeah, people play music. I spoke. Thanks for letting me go first. I really appreciate it. Cool. I spoke at a MusicPortland event at the White Eagle maybe 1 May ago, and I talked about Healthcare for All Oregon, this nonprofit that I volunteer with. So like, these guys are all volunteers. Everybody's a volunteer. Nobody's got any time. Everybody's doing what they can. There's 2 events that are happening in Portland that I'm stoked about and want to tell you about. There's also the reality of our state transition to a universal healthcare system, specifically a single-payer healthcare system, which would cover everybody in the state based on residency, not based on employment or based on poverty. That's like a real thing. It's so real. It's so real, this opportunity that's in front of us. So I'll tell you about those 2 cool events. I'll give like a 60-second synopsis, or I'll try to make it 60 seconds about like what I'm talking about with that other cool thing. So the 2 events are, we're doing a fundraiser, a blues and jazz fundraiser with Norman Sylvester, like a pillar of both our nonprofit and like the blues community here in Portland. And that, I believe, is May 10th. Is that right? Is that the same day as the Pearl Jam concert? There's a Pearl Jam concert, so you skip that. Yeah, so it's May 10th at the Aladdin Theater. It's at 8 p.m. And we're doing a fundraiser for our nonprofit. It is a really great, like, he's an amazing musician, and so it's a very fun time. So mark it in your calendars. I am so gay. I'm like the gayest person right here. And I'm coordinating Healthcare for All Oregon's Pride Parade, which is July 21st. And if you think that we should have universal health care and you're around July 21st, I would love for you to come march with me in the Portland Pride Parade. Please come. So that's my invitation. Show of hands, anybody know a gay person? Oh my God, you're invited. That'd be so great. So yeah, I'll be sitting right over there, and I would love to write down my email. Oh, I can tell you my email address if you want to get in touch with me, but just tap me on the shoulder in a minute. But Colin Stackhouse, Collin, Stackhouse at hcao.org, Healthcare for All Oregon. Okay, so my 60-second synopsis of what has been happening. There's been like years of task forces making recommendations for plans, like crafting, like, we think this is the best idea, and we recommend that there should be more planning before we propose a transition. So a group has been selected. The governors, it's the Universal Health Plan Governance Board. These 9 individuals have been selected, and they're super smart. They're not insurance companies. They're people that actually work on the ground with Oregonians and work like in the trenches and have a lot of lived experience, and they are planning our transition to single-payer healthcare. They are obligated to deliver their transition plan to our legislative body in September of 2026. So in September 2026, we will have a plan to move Oregon to a single-payer system. It's real. Yeah. So, is that a guarantee that it's going to happen? Absolutely not. Our elected officials at that time could choose to implement that transition, or potentially it'll become a ballot initiative that we will vote on. And our goal as a nonprofit is to talk about it nonstop and get everybody to talk about it with their friends. So tap me on the shoulder to learn more. Thank you.
So very quickly, I'd like to just sort of mention something, and this exactly reminds me of this. This is the plight of the need for single-payer healthcare is a decades-long one, and it'll probably still take many years to come. This work is hard advocacy, and change is slow. I was working for the city of Portland. I was a senior policy director for Commissioner Nick Fish, and my job specifically was to be the liaison to the business community and to the arts. That meant I obviously was going to be working in the music community. And I met Mara, I met Montchris, and I met them specifically when they came to me with the best single briefing document that I've ever experienced as a policy person. It was an 8-page document that I continue to reference this day, and it was the most basic idea, friends. They came to the city and said, we would like it if musicians could please use the loading zones in front of music venues. What an obvious idea, right? They went the next step and they wrote out this beautiful document that explained in a purpose statement. Why do we want this? Where can we have this? Oh, and by the way, here's a Google Street View of every existing loading zone in front of a city or a current music venue. All you gotta do is change the sign and say musicians allowed. That's super simple, right? The most obvious, brilliant, straightforward plan I've ever seen in my life as a policy nerd, and it still took a year from the day that these folks walked into my office to the day that we had a sign on a pole. This work takes time. That is why we are here right now today, is because we are not going to see things rapidly change in this city unless we are strategic, and we need to be planning for what is going to be coming. And so the point tonight is to set ourselves up for success and to applaud ourselves and pat ourselves on the back for the position we're in right now. Before we do that, though, I want to have my fellow Music Policy Council members introduce themselves. Again, we're all volunteers with different associations in the music community doing this, trying to fight towards a common North Star of a successful city. So I'm honored to work alongside of all these folks. I'm going to start with Brendy over here to my right.
Nice. All right. Hey, y'all. So my name is Brendy Hale. I'm a musician here in Portland. I play with a band called Second Base. And I got involved with the Music Policy Council and Music Portland during my master's studies in these past few years at PNCA, the art college downtown. And part of my thesis was to answer how can musicians who have been historically underserved gain access to performance spaces and practice spaces? Because under current noise code, it makes it really hard for independent musicians to have access to those things. Title 18 is one of our noise codes, and Title 14A30 is a nuisance code. And those two combating each other makes it really hard for people to make noise. And what do musicians do? We make a lot of noise. So I started attending both Music Policy Council events and their weekly meetings, and I started sitting in with the Noise Review Board of Portland's Noise Office. Portland has a noise office that is in charge of some of these things. Since then, I have joined a Title 18 reform work group with a few community leaders. And the idea is that we're going to go kind of step by step in Title 18, what is working, what is not working, and revamp it because it's been over 20 years since it's been looked at. And Portland has changed a lot in 20 years. I'm sure a lot of you know. So that's a little bit about what I do. And should I move it on? Yeah.
I'm Derek Trost. Thank you, Brendy. Music and architecture are the two balls that I juggle. So I do a lot of work as an active musician, but also a lot of work designing places that we live and work. And inevitably, recording studios and live music venues are a big part of that. So that's a focus for what I bring to the Music Policy Council. But the whole idea is that we have this variety of individuals from playing different roles in the community. The reason I'm here doing this stuff is because we finally have a mechanism where we can, instead of being paddling around in our own kayaks rather chaotically. We get to hop in a war canoe together and actually agree on topics, directions to go, with feedback from the community. And we now have a seat at the table with city councilors, county commissioners, and state legislators. They're coming to us going, what's going on? Or somebody's telling us something or asking us something, and we're coming to you guys. That's why we are all here volunteering our time. It seems like we are at this broader moment where we can start to actually move the ball. One thing we'll talk about is how you can get involved, but a big part of tonight is understanding from all of you what you think we should be working on, or what do you think we should be prioritizing from all these different topics.
Hello, my name is Chris Hubbard. I am a member and an elected officer of the Portland Musicians Union. And as Jamie referenced, we've been doing, among all the other things we do, is policy work that we've been doing for a long time. And we're able to partner with Mara on the loading zones, and are really glad to have now more partners in this music community to do policy work, because it really is so much more effective when there are multiple voices all at the same table. So that's my role here. There are a couple members of the Policy Council who represent the union, which is an organization about 550 musicians in town. Any professional musician is welcome to join. There's my very, very short pitch. Feel free to talk to me afterwards. But yeah, we're focused on workers' rights, and that's the perspective we're bringing to the council here. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sherry Jameson, and I joined the Music Policy Council just a little over a year ago after a lovely presentation by Brendy about the noise code. And I'm an opera singer and operations magic coordinator, and I'm an independent arts consultant here in town. And one of the things that inspired me to join the Music Policy Council was my background as being part of a local arts council where we had to interact with government and get funding for arts in our community. And so when I moved here 2 years ago, I knew the power of using your voice for change. And so when I found out about this, and then became involved with Music Portland through the economic impact study that we did a little over a year ago, and the Oregon Music Census, which I helped to lead and run the survey part, it just showed how powerful it is when we come together as a community, and I wanted to help support that. So I invite all of you. You don't have to have a lot of experience in order to get involved, and I'm just excited to be here and share what we've been doing.
Thank you. Just an incredible wealth of talent that I get to work with every week. It's amazing. A little bit of context very quickly. During the COVID pandemic, we decided to get organized around a set of common, specific policy changes that we wanted to see on the county, city, state, and local level. They involved a number of things, including very wonky things, like moving the noise office from the Bureau of Civic Life over to the Bureau of Development Services. We got that accomplished. Woo! Yay! The reason that's important is because the noise office, they issue noise permits, and they should be standing right next to the guy who issues the building permits. They shouldn't be standing next to the guy who's there because responding to graffiti complaints. Noise is an industry that deserves to be at the front of the mind when we're building things in the ground, not later when we're dealing with neighbors complaining. We focused on a number of other things, including acoustic zoning standards, requiring new developments to come in, or when they come build something directly behind an existing music venue, the onus should be on the new development to make it noise-proof. We haven't gotten there yet. We're going to talk about that stuff more. We talked about fixing things on the local and state level around liquor licensing and how the current rules do not allow for things like all ages music venues to exist or all ages musicians to be able to get on stage. At the time, it was COVID times. We were still all doing this almost entirely virtually, but we knew that we needed to come together with a clear voice. And we also knew that the music community has not been front and center in any of the conversations, especially in the arts and culture conversations or in the business community. We were our own little island. So what we did is we reached out to a broad spectrum of community-focused organizations, businesses, and individuals to say, hey, by the way, all these people also care about the music community being here and fixing these things. But this document's getting a little old, and we need to update it, and we need to get a little bit of fresh life into it. There's a lot of things that are going on right now and have been going on for the last couple of years. As Sherry mentioned, the state of Oregon designated commercial music and live performance as emerging economic sectors and put an economic impact study in place. You guys, if you've been involved in Music Portland in any regard for the last year, you have heard Mara over and over again hammer home the fact that we're a $3.8 billion a year industry in this state, that we are bigger than cannabis, that we are bigger than timber, that we are bigger than salmon, all without any recognition of it. At the same time, there's a bunch of other things that are going on. The governor's downtown task force focused on a set of policy suggestions to revitalize our community. Music was not included in that. I tried over and over again to get a seat at the table, but they would not invite me in. And arts and culture in general were not a seat at the table either, but music should have been a part of that plan. The city is finally taking serious the way that they spend $7 million a year on public arts. And no one in the city is happier than me that the city canceled the contract with the Regional Arts and Culture Council. This is a big deal. I know that things have changed a little bit, but when I was in City Hall, out of $7 million a year, musicians outside of the symphony got less than $50,000 a year. Like, things are going in a better direction, but fundamentally, we have the ear of City Hall, and they're starting to listen and understand where they need to spend their dollars. And to that same end, the city, county, and region have put together a plan called the Our Creative Future Coalition. This is it's been over a year that they have been having community listening sessions, and they're coming together around a set of recommendations. The draft recommendations are out now. It's about as good as you would think a city drafted plan for culture would be. And that is part of the reason we're here as well tonight. Because there's one other big thing that is happening in our community that is directly threatening our music community. And that is that Live Nation is actively targeting Portland to build a venue that, if recent history is any indicator, will directly put other music venues in this city out of business and will severely limit the ability for the music industry to grow. So it is time for us to get serious. So that's some context. So here are the things on this list that we know we're going to talk about. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues on this list to talk a bit about this list. But number one on the list is noise and nuisance code reform. Derek, give us a quick 60-second briefer on what noise and nuisance code reform are.
So the noise code basically governs how we prefer as musicians to call it sound, I think, a lot of the time anyway. If you are making sound in the city, there are specific criteria and it's scientific data that says this many decibels are allowed during these hours, needs to come down overnight, and it comes back up in the morning. There are specific accommodations for things like the construction industry, but not for the music industry. There are planning and zoning decisions made in the city that change how much sound or noise can be made at any location. Part of what we're looking at is the fairness of those decisions that are made, especially in connection with things like, hey, we have a $3.8 billion a year industry in Oregon, and 70% of that is happening in the Portland metro area. We should have a seat at the table like the construction industry does, because it's necessary to have jackhammers. We need streets, we need buildings, we need infrastructure. We also need arts and culture. And we don't just need it for the cultural value and the creative value, but it's actually a living for people. So we need accommodations the same way the construction industry does, and we ought to be able to get that. Those are examples of concrete things that we are asking for. I sit on the noise review board as a citizen at large. We have a noise control officer. There's a staff, but the staff is too small. We're trying to get that staff to grow back to where it was 20 years ago, even though the city is now multi-fold bigger than it was then. So there's a citizen task force that Brendy is a part of. At the same time, there's a parallel path on the noise review board where we as members of the board that are responsible for telling city councilors to make changes to the code. Nobody has done that for 25 years. So we are systematically going through the code as the board and doing that. And then we are also incorporating another member of the Music Policy Council who is going to coordinate testimony to the board. Each time we have a monthly meeting, there's a time for anybody in the community to get up and talk. This is on a Zoom call these days. But we want coordinated testimony to press forward with issues that we as a music community are concerned about, to press on these things in a coordinated fashion so we can get the ball to move. That's an example of how you guys can get involved to be a part of this. It's an example how I'm involved as part of an official city thing. Jamie is involved with that as a community member at large. We can also be testifying as members of the public. So there are lots of things that we can all participate in that take smaller or bigger chunks of time according to your appetite and availability.
We care about the nerdy details so you don't have to. Well, Chris, would you talk a little bit about funding and the effort that we were trying to, the effort that happened in Salem this last session, and in general our philosophical approaches to talking about how this funding should be supporting the music industry?
Yeah, I could talk a little bit, but I wouldn't mind if other folks jumped in. So, I mean, a little bit of background. The state of Oregon is 41st, 42nd out of something like that out of 50 states as far as arts funding per capita, which isn't great.
Nope.
And arts funding is a real issue in this state, especially in the last 3 years coming out of the pandemic, when arts organizations had to take a year, 18 months off from any work, right? And so what Jamie's referring to is a bill that we, and by we I mean the arts community, tried to get passed a year ago to provide sort of emergency funding for arts organizations that were and are at risk of going under. That bill originally was a $15 million funding request, which is a lot of money in some regards, and compared to the state budget is not a lot of money at all. That funding request in the 2023 legislative session ultimately got slashed to, there were 3 buckets, and 2 of the buckets got emptied completely, and the 3rd bucket got filled halfway. So the arts community came back this year and asked for the other 2 buckets to be filled at the same 50% level that the first one was filled. We succeeded in getting that through. There was a lot of advocacy, a lot of letters from musicians and artists and foundations and organizations saying, look, this is a problem that we need government level money to solve. Not solve, sorry, just help so that organizations that have been around for 50 years don't go under. So the state legislature passed a funding bill this year with those other 2 buckets. I think it was a total of about $15 million, which is sort of a stopgap. But ultimately, the state of Oregon needs to fund its arts way more than that. Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely. So additionally, the City of Portland canceled the contract with the Regional Arts and Culture Council. This is a nonprofit body that has received about $7 million a year in public dollars, specifically to support the arts. We love public dollars. We like it when we see where those dollars go, and we like it when they are working towards a common North Star of success. The contract with RAC was clearly not that after a number of years, and the city council, I mean, honestly, in fairness, the city council has never gotten it. They've never understood how to support the arts, how to support music, how to support the things that make the city interesting. They've just sort of happened. They're taking it seriously now and canceled that contract and are now re-examining how they are going to be doling out some of those dollars to different groups. There's a lot of work that needs to continue on this effort, and we are keeping an eye, on how to continue to push that conversation. But at the end of the day, funding is pretty much everything in this industry. We need to make sure people can actually pay for it. And we are definitely Music Oregon, which is the charitable and education-focused arm of the music community here, which is also Mara's baby, which Mara's doing too many things anyway.
can we segue into prevailing wage?
Yeah, let's yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Shouldn't have gone that way anyway. What the hell?
Jamie was talking about funding and civic funding specifically, and there's an item on this list, if you can read it, that says wages for musicians, and that's missing a word. It's missing the word prevailing wages for musicians. What prevailing? Well, I'm going to stop for a second. Funding for the arts is great, but sometimes funding for the arts means funding for Pioneer Square, funding for a stage for you to perform on, funding for someone to run security for your event, funding for the vendors that are going to be there selling food when you're playing, funding for everything except paying you to make music. Right? And there's a concept in the world of government funding called prevailing wage, which is very common in other industries where if there is government money going to a project, say a construction project, right? They're required to look at a certain minimum standard for all the workers on that project. And there are wage boards, there are government wage boards that are created to actually do this and set minimum standards for all the workers. And a concept that my union is very much in favor of, coming from the union world, is, well, why on earth don't we have that for musicians, right? Why can the city of Portland program an event in Pioneer Square and pay everybody a living wage except for the musicians who are expected to be grateful for the stage and grateful for the opportunity to sell merch, and then that's it. No pay. So the idea of prevailing wage, sometimes it's also called procurement standards, is that if there is city or government money for a project, that project has to pay a prevailing wage, a wage and working conditions too, based on standards that are set by the industry and a board that looks at the industry, right? For all of the workers, and that includes musicians. Mm-hmm. We have colleagues down in the Bay Area that are actually working on procurement standards in the Bay Area, and I mean, I'm bummed that they're going to beat us to the punch. It looks like by the fall, 4 major Bay Area cities, San Francisco, Oakland, Daly City, I can't remember exactly, could have procurement standards passed by their, now I'm getting ahead of it, like they have work to do, they've got lobbying to do, they've got to show up at their city councils, but they're working on it, and we can too.
Yeah. The basic idea here is, if PBOT is throwing a block party, PBOT being the Bureau of Transportation, if the Parks Department is throwing a movie in the park and they have an opening band, if the Economic Development Agency, Prosper Portland, is putting together some sort of event, there shouldn't be 7 different people paying 7 different wages to musicians. If those are public dollars, you should know that you're going to get paid a decent wage for spending your time performing for them. So I'm going to very quickly, because we're kind of taking a little time, I'm going to Did I do it again? No, I didn't. No. Okay, cool. We've talked on a little bit about it, some of these things, revitalizing downtown and the fact that right now it is impossible for musicians to find affordable places to perform and at the same time, or perform, practice, and live, and at the same time we have a crisis downtown where 30% of our buildings are empty. These things seem like they are a pretty obvious connection. I'm going to let Derek talk a little bit more about that real quick.
This is a good example of us trying to look at problems in the community and not just trying to sell people on what we think we need for our community based on a love of the arts. We're also trying to look at our community and say, what do you guys care about, especially these people who have influence and power of how this money gets spent and how decisions get made. So looking at downtown and downtown revitalization and looking also at affordable live workspace for musicians. Let's put these two things together. Let's get real estate downtown converted from now hopelessly, uselessly office space to live workspace for performing artists who are actively engaged. And what we're encouraging them to look at this as is, hey, we do want Section 8 housing downtown. We do need affordable housing to be converted, buildings to be converted to affordable housing and new structures to go up in our city. But as part of that, we can participate in that change that is going to be a major sea change for downtown by injecting into that new community of housing in that area where you'll have people now supporting restaurants and retail that formerly depended on office workers being there. But these people are going to be there all day and all night, and their friends and colleagues are going to be down there rehearsing and working down there. So we want public money to subsidize housing down there so we can make that move. And we think that's a good fit for the business community as well as a good fit for the music community.
Or we can eat the rich.
You only have to eat one billionaire and the rest will get in line.
Why are we holding vacant property
Yep.
that is unused?
Yep.
Why do we need public money?
It should be just.
Somehow slowly fix the problem. It's not going to change.
Yep.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
Eat the fucking rich.
I don't disagree. I'll say it a little bit more. No, eat the fucking rich. It's fine. The Montgomery Ward building sold for like pennies on the dollar. Why? I mean, literally, I think it went in auction for like $13 million, which is a lot, much more money than I have. But for a city of Portland or for a private investor or somebody who actually works in the money world, it's pennies on the dollar for opportunities that are never going to be there again. They already built the buildings. They're already there. They already have plumbing. They already have electricity. There's so much more we should be doing now. But there are some perverse incentives that actually make it so that these projects pencil at 50% occupancy, or that it's actually better for insurance rates if you leave it empty. This is all in our priorities, absolutely. Very quickly, I'm going to just combine two things on this list up here. Liquor licensing reform and all ages music access. They are tied very similarly. They are not necessarily the same thing. The OLCC, Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission now, if anybody's tried to do business in here, you know that the way that those liquor licensing laws, and in order to get your permit, it is a very defined set of rules that if you screw up, you lose your permit. You lose your permit, you lose your business. That's the end of the game. And having people under the age of 21, especially performers, but also fans, makes it too challenging under the existing system. We also need to invest in creating those intentional spaces and trying to support the organizations that are building all ages access and all ages venues already, and the interesting opportunities that are already here. So we're going to move on because, again, we've been talking for a while, and I want to hear from you guys. I also want to hear more people yell out, "Eat the rich" from the audience. Oh, and Live Nation, which we mentioned in briefly, but this is a big deal, and I want to talk. Yeah, we'll eat Live Nation too. Good Lord, I am not good at PowerPoint. So, I had passed around some note cards and pencils. I don't care if anybody actually did it, but I was hoping that as we were sitting here talking, people have been thinking of priorities, thinking of issues, thinking of other things that are going on in the community, or any specific suggestions that you might have. So this is what did I do next? Yeah. So this is an opportunity. I'd love to hear from you. We would love to hear, and folks up here would love to be able to respond. Before we do that, do you guys have final thoughts about our thinking process of how we've prepared for this moment and what we should be, thinking about next? Come on.
I would just say if you do not have an answer to these questions, if you didn't show up with firm policy ideas for us, that's very okay. I don't think we're expecting 50 people out here to put 50 beautiful policy ideas on our plate. But yeah, anything you want to talk about.
I think focus on the idea that it would be really helpful to get feedback from you guys about what we are up to. If that seems good to you, let us know. If a different version of it seems like a better idea, let us know. If doing something else instead as a higher priority is a good idea, let us know. That's why we're here tonight, because our entire reason for being involved as volunteers is to try to figure out what we need as a community and make that stuff happen.
Somebody over here has.
Yeah, I've got something. So I've been speaking with a group of independent musicians lately, and we're hoping to get together, I believe actually mid-month in April, we're going to get together and talk about this among other things. But we were talking about possible policy solutions to some of the issues that ail Portland. And this venue notwithstanding, a lot of venues in this town that used to be historically black-owned or used to have majority black performers have gone extinct, mostly because of the I-5 corridor and redlining and all of that stuff that we absolutely hate. But to try to solve that issue, we were brainstorming and thought, is it possible for us to pressure the city of Portland or perhaps the state of Oregon to use public funding to open a black music to try to get back to that community that's historically been erased for so long? How does that sound to all of you? And what do you think of the idea?
I think that's a great idea. We need to
restate it for anyone who couldn't hear it.
Yeah, we're talking about the idea of, let me also add to that historically every black-owned music venue in Portland has been shut down. Categorically, there are none right now, and there have been 1 to 2.
This one.
Right. Thank you. So Alberta Street Pub is the one. So a bunch of people getting together, brainstorming ideas about what we can do to change that. One thing we need to do is support venues like Alberta Street Pub, obviously, and making changes to how we decide to create new venues would make a big difference with that. The other thing with the OLCC stuff is that the main lever for shutting down each of these black-owned clubs in Portland has been via the LCC and via the noise code and the nuisance code. And what people have been doing is, if you complain, the Liquor Control Commission gives you a check mark. If you get enough check marks, you lose your license and you effectively shut down this business. And that's the way it's gone each time. And oftentimes it's been very few people complaining about a place that a lot of people are depending on for their community, for cultural expression, as well as simply part of the economic engine that is our city.
As a follow-on to that, there just was a massive amount of money reallocated from the federal government to make some kind of reparation for the decimation of the black community along the I-5 corridor. I just heard today about a black artist that wants to start a music venue. Can the Policy Council help to navigate things like that?
Absolutely, and I think Albina Trust has been newly smiled upon by the city. There's offices and facilities being handed over from the public school administration. I know that stuff is happening. I think it's a great way to push further forward with this.
It's also a really good point that one thing that I particularly like to do as a representative of you is trying to help navigate complicated bureaucratic problems. Musicians shouldn't have to know how the Bureau of Environmental Services works. That's not really your job. But when a warehouse filled with recording studios gets an eviction notice from the Bureau of Environmental Services, they come to us and say, what the hell do I do with this? And we can help navigate those. So if a complicated bureaucratic process falls into your lap and you want some help just figuring out how to wade through it, contact us. That's a feature we really want to continue to be able to hide. Brendy, would you do me a favor? Would you sort of explain to folks specifically a little bit more of a fine detail about why 14A30 specifically is leading to a loss of Black-owned music venues?
Totally. So, like, as we said before, there are sort of two Portland-specific codes that are based sort of around noise. Title 18 is a decibel specific and a couple other measurable attributes for noise that someone could go in and say, hey, this is actually too loud, we've measured, we can shut this down. Title 14A30, however, is a nuisance code. It is not related to noise specifically, but rather the idea of what a nuisance is. And in this stage, there have been a lot more Black-owned venues shut down because the type of music, bass heavy, hip-hop, has been a nuisance to those around them.
Do they describe nuisance? Do they describe nuisance? Do they define it?
When it's in the nuisance code, when they talk about sound, they say if something is plainly audible, then it is a nuisance. That same language in the states of Florida and Texas has been struck down as unconstitutional. It's still on the books in Portland.
Florida's got nothing on us. Woo! Anybody else?
In places like Seattle, they're starting to have people in the mayor's office that are like night music coordinators and event coordinators, and people whose sole job it is to help be the kind of coordinator, overseer of all the musicians' needs, venues' needs, helping navigate the mayor's office, etc. Can we lobby to have a similar position or something like that in our government?
Absolutely. One of the key recommendations that came out of the economic impact study that we did in 2023 was to create an office of music. And I know that there have been attempts in the past to have an office of music or be part of another office at the city level, but this would be something that we see as an independent or semi-independent government-recognized office, so that it could have it wouldn't have too many bureaucracy, things tamping it down, but that we could really respond to the needs of the music community and the nighttime economy, as you were talking about. And that concept is happening all over the globe. We just had an event with Shane Shapiro, who wrote a wonderful book on music policy called This Must Be the Place. Highly recommend it. And he talks about how cities are investing in music policy, in their music economies, and that is becoming a tool for other aspects of society, and as well as an economic driver.
Especially that we are not asking for money because people think we're cool. That's great. But we are also asking for money because what Shane Shapiro has plainly demonstrated as a PhD level nerd of economic development and how cities work, he goes, you idiots, they're making all kinds of money. You guys are benefiting from this. This is a critical part of a well-functioning city on every level. If we put dollars into this, it will grow all of that. If we put more dollars into it, it will grow even more. Hello.
My name is Andre Middleton. I run Friends of Noise. I also happen to sit on the Portland Parks Budget Advisory Committee. And when I hear this conversation, I really think it's important for us to obviously acknowledge, but really think of creative pathways that the music and arts ecosystem is included in the city's overall economic health. I mean, obviously, Parks and Rec does not generate the same kind of revenue as venues do. But they do charge for permits, they charge for this and that. but people value parks. They value, athletic activity. They value having access to a tree canopy that helps keep us cool. We need to make sure that the music part of the arts ecosystem is seen in that same regard. How is this keeping ourselves, how is it keeping us mental health? How are we doing things in a way that are making people feel included, not excluded? And it's often in music venues and in theater and other arts institutions where people feel most welcome, most included. So I hope that as we talk about, what can we do to combat Live Nation, I think that Portland would be right. I think it'd be a great opportunity for there to be a publicly funded arts institution that is not like P5, but that is something more like the Vera Project or Holland Project or Wow Hall. I mean, there should be a way that we collectively are investing in creating a pipeline of opportunity for musicians, for sound engineers, for stage managers, for people who are actually having such a huge impact on ourselves as we speak. Unfortunately, it's hard to afford to live downtown. It's hard to afford to live anywhere east of Troutdale and west of Hillsborough these days. So I really think that there could be a way of thinking about how do we create spaces where the bottom line isn't to sell alcohol, but the bottom line is to create a positive, healthy environment for us all to participate.
For those who don't know, Andre, in addition to being the force behind Friends of Noise and a great ally for so many other amazing operations in the city, he's also a member of the Music Policy Council for obvious reasons. This is why we're all here. Is between all of us, we can manage to figure out a bunch of stuff that we need to do. One of the pivots that we're trying to make is exactly along the lines of what Andre is articulating so well, is we need to get past the point where we are enthusing about these things that are working and we are frustrated about things that aren't working. We need to get things to actually move and change. So creating committees and getting those folks at the table who are capable and available and trying to combine our powers to actually start to move the ball is our main goal. I think these are changes that we on the Policy Council share as frustrations, where it's like, I think we're past the point where we are having the conversation, we've got the open dialogues. We now need to get way more balanced in the action part of things.
So here's a freebie. Right now, Portland has a 2% for art. That says that if you are building a major construction in the Portland metro area, that 2% of that money needs to be devoted to art. And right now, most of those developers are putting up murals or putting up storefronts. Why can that be put towards performing arts? I mean, we're going to have a Bina Vision Trust. We're talking about revamping Lloyd Center. We've got the OMSI South Waterfront District coming online. We've got the Pearl District expanding. How can we start looking at those resources being devoted in ways that isn't just fluff and window dressing? How do we create sustainable models of economic development that are going to be paying people's rent and paying people's food for years to come?
I can smell a committee in the works right there, Andre.
Andre's mentioned two things that I want to just talk about. One, the 2% for art is a great example. That's been around for 30, 40 years.
And it's grown.
Yeah.
So they're able to grow it.
And one of the problems is that there's no one sitting in city government who realizes that art, I mean, in the code it does specifically, I think it says like visual art, but one of the problems is no one ever thinks about, like no one makes that connection, even though all of us in this room do. No one in charge makes that connection. The other thing Andre mentioned was talking about publicly owned arts infrastructure, which I think is terribly important. We have some unique challenges here in Portland with the state of our city government and our metro government. And you mentioned P5, which is publicly owned, but to be frank, the city of Portland and metro neither of those governments would rather deal with P5 at all. And again, I mean, I don't know how to change that in the government right away, but that's a priority that the government does not have. They do not want to have anything to do with P5. It is a hassle for them. The people who run P5, P5 is run by Merck, which is a part of Metro. the MERC is the Metropolitan Exposition Recreation something. Yeah. And they, the MERC board are business people who see P5 and think, if our budget is not, if we lose money on this, it's not worth doing, right? But of course, we all know that losing money on the arts is investing in the arts, right? It should be something that the city loses money on because we should be spending our money on it. But that's the kind of the problem that we're up against in our current.
Can we get them on a panel next month?
That's
Like,
it.
who's in charge?
Maybe.
Like,
No one's in charge.
who can we bring our pitchforks and shovels to? Seriously, are you guys in charge?
I think a big part of it is showing up to vote in this new round of how our city is structured with a new mayor, a city manager, and geographically representative council members. We're going to have a lot more council members, and they're going to very differently represent who we are as citizens. So
How does this group show up and demand what is obvious?
part of what we're asking for, is, I think Sherry articulated, is that we want a music organization the same way they have an office for film.
Also
the same
worth
way they
noting,
have
real
an
quick,
office for development.
we have a number of city council candidates who are in this room, including me, by the way. I'm running for city council, but we have Laura Strive over here. We have, I don't know if he's still here, Jesse Cornett. He may have left already. Never mind, don't vote for him. He left already. Aquiles Montes is right over here. He's also running in District 2. Did I miss anybody else? I don't see anybody else. But there's some really good people who are running for office right now. I have come to the conclusion personally that we're not going to get a whole lot out of the current city council because they haven't done a whole lot in the previous 4 years. But we have like 8 months left until November, and there's a lot of damage they can do between then and now. And so we cannot let them off the hook. We have been trying as a community to get this noise code issue taken care of for 2 years, and we had hundreds of people calling City Hall and trying to demand this, and we still haven't gotten it moved. So we're almost to the pitchforks and eating the rich, but I'm also still vaguely optimistic about November. So.
I'm wondering, is there any specific plan or anything around Live Nation? I feel like it's been mentioned in this space a few times, but I haven't heard anything specific, and it doesn't sound promising.
Thank you. That's a really. I'm going to take this one because I have been personally
official bulldog
getting involved in this, and I want you all to care about this. So the question is, what the hell is Live Nation, and why do we care? And what are we going to do about it? So very quickly, for those who don't know, Live Nation is the largest entertainment monopoly in the world. They own Ticketmaster. They own dozens of venues, and they manage artists, hundreds of venues. It's gross. They've been trying to build a venue in Portland for over a decade. They have so far been unsuccessful, and right now they're trying to build a venue in the central east side along the river. We have an opportunity as a music community to get organized, and I firmly believe the number one thing that as a community we can do to prevent Live Nation from coming in and throwing elbows and demanding their space is that we can get organized first before they get here. Every community where they have been able to open a venue and start throwing elbows, part of the reason was because the music community was so fractured and wasn't speaking with one voice. And anybody who's been a musician in this city for any length of time knows that we also have our own silos within this industry, and that we have a lot of work to do among ourselves to find out, to demonstrate, to demonstrate that we have more in common than we don't, and that our shared success is beneficial to all. Thank you, Derek. So Live Nation specific, yeah. The
construction hasn't started yet. So what's the timeline?
One thing we have heard back from Live Nation is that they have been having a tough time because people from Music Portland and Music Oregon have been speaking up, and members of the community have been speaking up, and they are hearing about it, and it has made it difficult. So we are making a difference collectively with this villain that is here among us.
Absolutely. What we've heard is that Live Nation doesn't want to fight to come into this city. They want to be welcomed, or they want to come in unannounced. We have already done a good job calling it out and making sure that we can scream from any media venue that we can that Live Nation is coming and targeting our local independent scene. I believe that there are a couple of options here. And I will tell you that I don't know if any of them are going to work, but I do believe that if we can be successful, the music industry will be stronger regardless of what happens. I think that right now what we're doing, continuing to agitate, continuing to shit talk Live Nation on Twitter, continuing to do whatever we can to make it sort of unpleasant for them to walk in. We did it with Walmart. The city of Portland kept Walmart out of city limits. We can do it with the Walmart of the music industry.
We're also trying to push from the other side is there are other qualified people who run local independent venues. These folks are known nationally now because a number of them are responsible for a collective effort nationally that went not to Salem only, but to DC, and created NEVA, this National Independent Venue Association group. There's new energy revolving around that, and those folks are operating locally saying, hey, we think we can actually put together a better proposal than Live Nation, and we're trying to do that. Will you let us in?
Yep. Our ideal, we want a music venue. We want a new 3,500 person music venue in the city. I want that. I wish it was like a 6,000 person music venue. Maybe we'd have a different conversation. But nobody's investing in the city right now, right? We do want the infrastructure. We do want the energy. We just don't want it to come at our expense. And so our preferred option as a music policy council that we are trying to force to happen, and we don't have any levers to make this happen, is to swap out Live Nation and just go to the developers and say, hey, we've already handed it to you on a plate. Here it is. Here's all the money that you would have gotten from Live Nation, but from locally owned control. And we are hopefully going to have something like that to show soon.
What is the difference, though, between a local rich guy who gets all the benefits and Live Nation?
Sure. I mean, fair. I mean, ultimately, capitalism eats the rich, and the wheels and machines are oiled. So specifically, here's my specific concerns. Live Nation, when they have come into any community that they've come into, what they often will do is first they will subdivide their venue. Right now, the proposal is a 3,500 cap venue, 2,000 standing, 1,500 seated on the mezzanine. And so the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to close the mezzanine and go after the 2,000 cap shows. So that means that they would directly compete to try to remove the shows from the Crystal Ballroom, Roseland, Revolution Hall. Second thing they do in every city that they've opened a music venue is they open a second music venue, a smaller one, 200 to 500 person shows. And they start booking exclusively all of their artists and their shows and their special things in there. And they remove the existing Ticketmaster and Live Nation shows that are happening in other smaller venues. They, in other cities, have purchased music venues just to close them, just to reduce competition in the cities. They put exclusivity and proximity clauses on their artists. If you are an emerging artist and you get invited to play a festival in Bend, they'll say you can't play any other shows within 200 miles of here, which means you can't play in your home city of Portland. And they will go around, once they have their foothold, and demand local venues exclusively use Ticketmaster or risk not getting any of the broader spectrum of shows that exist. So, yes, any single moneyed interest around this industry is going to inherently siphon profits away from artists. Live Nation is doing it in such an intentionally aggressive business way that it has demonstrated in every community they've gone to that it demonstrably reduces the impact of the local. In fact, most recently, the most recent city that Live Nation has opened in is Des Moines, Iowa, and they're already seeing music venues close. Just 6 months ago is when they opened, and they're already seeing local independent venues close. Cities of of Austin or Nashville right now have fewer music venues and fewer professional musicians than Portland does. That wasn't the case 10 years ago. And a lot of that, according to the folks on the ground, is due to the business practices of Live Nation specifically. So,
but to answer your question,
yeah.
I do think that Portland could uniquely in a position to use some leverage that we haven't used in the past. For example, Rose Quarter has a great lease, and Portland for years has not exercised the leverage that they could over the Trailblazers in the Rose Quarter district. The same thing happens with beer distributors. Beer distribution's been making a killing over who gets to buy beer, who gets to sell beer. If we could actually come together and operate under the premise that if we stand alone, what is your thing? We stand together.
Independent together.
Independent together. We actually have so much leverage, but due to capitalism, due to the rich people being able to write a check, we haven't been able to come together to write that bigger check ourselves. And we've seeded so much positioning, so much land, so much power to these people over and over and over again. So you're right. If we just go to Monkeith, we just go to Trip Double T and say, hey, here's the check, build a new thing for us, we'll be in the same position that most musicians are 10, 20 years from now. How do we get the union involved? How do we get sound engineers involved in a real way? Where we say, no, we're not going to get lowballed and only allow that venue to pay us $150 for a night, even though we're the ones that are making things sound right. We can do this. It's just a matter of coming together in forums like this and being really creative and thinking about ways that, hey, how can a really publicly owned, publicly run, where we're the shareholders? How many football stadiums around the country are actually sustainable because there's a community shareholding thing, not one rich guy that owns everything, who's charging $20 for a beer, who's paying pennies for the people who park cars and the like. So it's doable. You just have to come together and figure it out.
Thank you. I want to do a quick plug for Stumptown Soundcheck, which is the podcast that Jamie hosts, where we talk a lot about the policy initiatives that we're working on at the Music Policy Council. So Stumptown Soundcheck, it's a collaboration with Portland Radio Project, and if you Google that, or is it on the website somewhere? Yeah. Wherever you get your podcast. So Stumptown Soundcheck.
So one of the things that we have going on in the community right now is a new nonprofit called The Living Garden, which is a couple of blocks down the street on 13th in Alberta. And our mission is uniting the communities by ensuring equitable access to the arts in all forms. That means living wages for artists and international stages right here in Portland that allow our artists to be showcased. One of the things that I've noticed as I've reached out to businesses for sponsorships over the last 5 months is that people want to donate in kind, but nobody wants to donate their money. And this includes the New Seasons, the Whole Foods, the Nikes, so how do we get these bigger businesses that are profiting off of our community involved? Because this is a no alcohol event, a family-friendly event. DJ OG1 is involved with the Trailblazers, DJ Aspen of the Timbers and Thorns. And we have created a huge stage, but we're also supporting our local artists. So how do we get these bigger businesses that are profiting off of our communities to sponsor these music events, right? So that we can keep the ticket costs accessible to the community, because the only way to really do that is charge $100 for a weekend ticket. But even $100 for 2 days, that's only $50 a day for music. To us, it's like, that'd be worth it. But to a lot of people, most of the community, it's like, that's really tough. And so we need to make these things more accessible to the community as well.
I think part of the answer, too, is to remind those businesses that this is not just the value of culture and art and access to culture and art in the community, but we musicians are business people. We are entrepreneurs, and we are out there working hard. We're working all the time. We're working overtime. And this economic impact study finally demonstrates concretely just how much money there is involved there. And I hope that that helps us. It seems to be helping us already get a foothold with the business community where they're looking at that and going, okay, this is cash put in the right place. It's put in the right place because of culture. It's also put in the right place because of the economic engine.
Yeah. We've got Sam over here.
So I've been working in live music about 25 years, mostly on the technical side and touring. And I'm curious, Monkey, Double T, and all of our local promoter friends have had unfettered access to this market for 50 plus years and have not come up with a 3,500 capacity venue that the city has needed inarguably for a long time. And so I'm curious, like, how real is this plan that you guys are putting together, and does it have financing in this world where like interest rates are jumping and people can't afford this stuff? Like, as a technician, I want there to be more jobs for people who do what we do. And I have to be honest, like, the local players don't necessarily pay a living wage, so like, why do they deserve our support as opposed to this other thing?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And I'll tell you, I don't know that we are honestly going to be able to have any measurable impact at the end of the day, because the kinds of dollars we're talking about that are involved in this and the industry that these players are playing, Live Nation's made $23 billion last year in profit. We can't even compare in any capacity to that. And, we're volunteers up here too. I think that the reality is such that I think probably this alternative will not happen, if I'm being totally honest. That if they were gonna, they would have. Maybe the idea of outside pressure and outside competition will actually motivate some of these moneyed interest folks to actually figure it out and do it. And now that their feet are to the fire, they have to. We're not putting all of our eggs in that basket. That is our preferred plan to maintain local control and not invite giant corporate monopolies into the city. But if they are going to be coming here, and there's nothing that we can actually do, what are our pinch points to try and put bookends on what they are allowed to do here? Because on the one hand, this project is done in partnership with a local developer named Beam Development, who I will give credit, I think they thought they were trying to do something good by investing in the arts, and they said, oh great, let's do something for the arts community. What could we do? Let's build a music venue. Who builds music venues? Live Nation. Ta-da, we're so great. And they kind of have been a little surprised by the pushback. You should do your research before you get in bed with anybody. But you know what? Like, that's where we're at. The piece of land that this is being built on is continuing to be owned publicly. This is a publicly owned piece of land and will continue to get rent on that piece of land for 100 years. The city's economic development agency, Prosper Portland, will continue to receive about $130,000 a year. Them not very much money for an entire city block, but it is a continued financial investment. What pinch points can we get there for them to demand certain uses? Also, what can we demand that the city do with that $130,000 a year in lease payments? I've been in advanced conversations with Prosper Portland and with city council members saying, take that money and dedicate it to the independent music community here in some meaningful, ongoing, dedicated way. We want to work and apply pressure on Beam Development and say, if you're going to invite this organization into our community, you can set the terms by which they use their property, or you can set the terms by which their partnership is entered. And are there opportunities for more community uses of this space at cost? Are there opportunities for other developer, I lost my train of thought. But there are some bookends we think we can put in here, but I think more than anything, right now, the best thing we can do is continue to poison the well a little bit and make it uncomfortable for Live Nation to come here until we can get a seat at the table with them and actually say, like, what are the terms by which you want to comfortably come here? But the other side of it is, if Live Nation is going to be here and they are going to do what they do in every other community, the only real true solution we have is that we use our voices and we get organized quickly.
They've been here for 20 years.
Absolutely. Well, they book shows, but they don't own land. They don't own the bricks and sticks, and that's a big difference in how they operate as a business. And it really does give us an interesting opportunity. But you're not wrong. I mean, we have Live Nation shows happen at every venue from the Doug Fir up to the Moda Center. Like Lizzo, well, not anymore, but all these things, they are here, and they just got permitted to do stadium rock shows at the Providence Park. They're going to be doing 8 concerts there, apparently. So they are going to be here. They are going to be an ongoing problem, and they are the largest monopoly in the world, in the entertainment world. There's no chance that we aren't going to be impacted by them in some way. All we can do is sort of stake our claim ahead of time and just try to make it a little bit less comfortable for them and hope that something comes. I am also very open to other ideas. I have never stopped a $23 billion company from coming to a city before. So if anybody has suggestions...
Well, one of the things that we can do is fight for policy solutions that will stop them from some of their predatory behavior. You mentioned radius clauses. There are laws in our state, in every state, well, not in every state probably, but in our state, in Washington, there are laws already on the books regarding radius clauses in contracts. And our friends up in Washington recently strengthened those laws so that it's now illegal, and I'm not going to get the law exactly right, but I think for club musicians, for clubs, a radius clause of more than, gosh, it might be any duration at all. I wanted to say 30 days, but honestly, it might be less than that. Is completely illegal. You can't force your musicians, if you're a club, to sign a contract that says they won't play, within 100 miles for any length of time before or after your gig. It's just illegal now in Washington. That's the sort of thing we could do in Oregon. To be frank, I've looked at the radius clause laws that are already on the books in Oregon, and they're stricter than you might think. I guarantee that some of you here have probably signed contracts with illegal radius clauses in them, and you didn't know. And it's not your fault, you didn't know, right? It's part of the work that we can do is to educate people to the laws that are already on the books, and then strengthen those laws.
Also remember that we do have a musicians union. These folks are not new at organizing. So if we want to learn how to organize, we need to remember also not to reinvent the wheel, is that
join the union.
That this is here, this is part of us, and the union has extended and reached out beyond its membership to make things happen like that, fair pay for musicians beyond just their membership. This is an important part of a deep, long history throughout our country and certainly here locally.
Well, yeah, and I will add to that through our musicians union, we are connected to the broader labor movement, and a lot of the broader labor movement also doesn't think of us musicians as workers, and so it's helpful to have our union at that table to remind them that no, it's not just construction workers and teachers and nurses, all of whom are, very, very important workers. But we're also workers, and we also deserve the same protections everyone else does. So with, our union is affiliated in confederation with those unions, and we can bring the attention and the might of the broader labor movement to musician issues.
All right, we have time for one more question.
My name is Ben, and I'm an emerging musician. I joined MusicPortland a year ago, and I'm also on the East Portland Chamber of Commerce. But I have a statement and a couple questions. But I love the music culture of this part of town. I want everyone to think of Interstate 205 and think east to Gresham. How many ticketed venues are there in that area? It's crickets, right?
No, the east side gets fun.
It's a beautiful area. It's multiculturally diverse, and I would like to see more of this culture here in that part of town as well. And as part of that, I'm thinking what policies are in place to help the local restaurant owners, the local venues there that say, hey, I'd like to start having musicians in my, in my restaurant. Is it going to be hard for me to do that or not? What are those policies, number one? And then number two, around, home concerts. What are the policies relative to home concerts? If that's kind of the ground root start to kind of get musicians to come out there, what can we do to, strengthen those home policies as well?
I think that directory that Mara mentioned at the beginning of the night is a massive resource for those folks to come. It's like, you want to know where Portland musicians are? Come to this directory. We've got it all right here for you. Very straightforward, very compact.
Yeah. And to speak to your other comment about alternative venues, so house shows and people trying to get permits to have shows at restaurants and things like that. One thing that's happening at the Noise Review Board right now is we're putting together a community outreach specific committee. And that is in charge of informing the public of these kind of titles that are in place. A lot of them are pretty reasonable if you adhere to the specific noise codes. They give you a good amount of headway. But to be familiar with your rights when it comes to someone knocking on the door, complaining, saying, hey, this is a nuisance, and you can retort and you can say, no, actually, because of this and this, we're actually well inside these grounds. We've here at the Music Policy Council created a voluntary noise reporting form for venues so they can have a structured, showable document to bring to anyone who's complaining to them. Those forces, be it PPD, be it the noise officer, to say that, hey, we believe that music, everyone here shares this belief, that music is sharing of culture, and this is what we're doing to promote culture in Portland, in our home. And this way, we're held accountable. We're doing everything in our power to stay within this system that you've created. And so that's one more thing. And one thing that Derek and I are a part of is one other of these sort of committees is great. We're looking for educators, we're looking for designers, we're looking for advocates who are good at writing to voice their opinions in a community group setting, that we can be the liaisonship between the Noise Review Board and the Noise Office on these exact same things.
In other words, we're creating content that you guys would have access to as performers and creators. If you're running a recording studio or you need a place to practice or rehearse, or you're performing somewhere or you own a venue, those educational resources are for you to learn how to navigate the noise office and get a variance, or know that you're in compliance, or learn that you're not in compliance, but how to get there. But also for neighbors to go to and be like, oh, look, there is stuff to be in compliance with sound. And if they are, I don't have the basis for a complaint.
So we need help. Ongoing. We're all volunteers and we're all working towards the same goal. And there's a lot of really good energy out in the community. And a lot of you guys have amazing lived experiences and you know things that we don't know. We need help ongoing. We need your stories. We need your bodies. We need you to be willing to submit a piece of testimony that I wrote and put your name on. We need you to be able to show up to a public meeting and hold a sign up and say we care about these things. We need your brilliance in terms of actually helping us with putting together new policy suggestions or putting together ad hoc committees about specific issues. So tonight, if something has sparked an interest in the back of your brain and you want to get involved more, if you want to work on a specific issue or you want to help us with organizing, collecting stories, doing outreach, helping all of the parts of the continuum that are necessary for us to be able to advocate for you. So we want to find those ways to get involved and we want your help. But please don't walk away from this meeting thinking that you did good by hearing this. This was your introduction to the cult. You're all members now. We need you to stay involved. And as you said, up here, there's all these things. We're going to give you guys ways to get in touch. You all know how to get a hold of us in general. But if you're interested, please do plan on getting involved. Please do plan on even just reaching out to one of us to just jabber at us for 5 minutes and talk about your situation and tell us what you hope this city could look like. It really does matter. I'm going to let each of my panelists up here give some closing remarks, but thank you guys all so much for being here tonight.
I'll just say that I joined the Music Policy Council after an evening just like this. So if that's something in your heart that you're feeling called to do, contact Renee and Mara, and we'll get you in. You can join as a guest and sort of check it out and see if it's right for you. It's a info at musicportland.org. And yeah, just check it out. See, it's a great way to keep the pulse of what's going on and add your voice. And you can do it as a guest intermittently. We have several people that are just sort of, they pop in when they can.
Nothing to add. Yeah, come say hi afterwards if you want to know anything about the Musicians Union. And yeah, be involved. That's the best way to make a change.
I think help us make this change from just talking about this stuff to actually doing stuff. We need people to join a committee and be a part of actually doing the work to make change happen.
Doing the work can take a lot of forms. It can be starting a committee, it can be joining one, it can be going to your local shows. If you're in the habit of putting on shows yourself, think of what kind of audiences you're drawing. Draw the biggest possible audience you can. Open all-age venues, all-age shows, all genres, mixed genres. Cross-pollination is how we make really cool shit happen.
Sorry, I know we're all ready to go to talking to each other. I have one more way you can help. I'm a member of Music Portland, as are many of you. No, it's great. I'm Maliki. I'm a songwriter. I play with Small Million, and I manage Ear Trumpet Labs, the microphone workshop. But I was just asked to talk really briefly about membership. I saw the show of hands and know that the majority of us here are paid members, which is amazing. One more way that you can help the organization is by helping us spread the word that paid membership, which is $25 a year for individuals, is a really important way both for people like this amazing Volunteer Music Policy Council to show our numbers, and it is a way that they can use the leverage of how many of us there are to get things done. Right now, we have 380 paying members out of how large the music industry here is. Yay for us, the paying members, we rule. But there's a lot more that we need. Operationally, this organization is run by Renee and Mara, who do this full-time and make all of the work of Music Portland happen. I don't know how many people know this, but Mara is almost entirely unpaid for 6 years. If the work of this organization is so vital, and it's really important that we support it as the organization for everything that it's done for us, a vital cultural organization in Oregon. So thank you so much for supporting it. And we're trying to figure out how better to get people on board with paying for membership as well. So there's things like the performer directory, which is absolutely incredible. You're going to love it when you get a chance to look at it. You can already look at it now. That's an incredible resource for people. And a reason that you can bring it up to people for why they should join Music Portland. But as you saw, all of the advocacy work, that's what the money and your name on a list goes towards, is making this movement happen. So thank you so much.